Please know it takes a lot of effort and time to put a day like this together. You guys have no classes, so we have to think about how will we make sure your time is well spent during this whole day, and that takes a lot of time. So the one thing I'm most asking from you today is two things. One is to be respectful, follow pride as always, but two, and this is probably more important, I really hope you engage with all that we do. We have a wonderful speaker who I'll introduce in a second to start the day. We have other people coming in to speak with you in the next couple of hours. I'm really asking that you engage as fully as you can with what we're doing today. So I hand it over to second. This is Dr. Zucker. She's been talking to you all this morning. She works with kids. She does psychotherapy with kids. She works with kids. I'm trying to make them help them. So I'm going to hand it over to her, let her lead this session. But I ask you guys to get your best major. If you play with the bats, I promise.
Great, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I don't know. I think. So I'm going to break the hour into 3 parts. So we're going to first talk about anxiety and stress. And then we're going to do a little exercise where you're going to think about a goal that you're interested in challenging. It could be a habit you have, like nail biting. It can be perfectionistic tendencies. It could be a fear. Maybe some of you have a certain fear that you're trying to overcome. I'm going to show you examples and make it really clear. And then we're going to listen to a very nice relaxation exercise for about 15 minutes. I know you guys have learned. Can you hear me without the microphone? All right, never mind. Okay, I'll use the microphone. Can you hear me? Don't worry about this. The thing we're going to do at the end, we're going to listen to a wonderful relaxation. And I know that you guys have learned quite a bit about mindfulness. And this is one of those mindfulness exercises that are very relaxing that will set you up for your day. Okay, so the first part we're going to do is learning about anxiety and anxiety disorders and stress. And I was thinking how great it is that McLean brought me here today to get to speak with you guys and spend this morning with you. Because why is this important on a day called Inside Out, right? Where you're looking at yourself and thinking about what your goals are. And one of the things we want to make sure is that anxiety and fear don't stand in your way of your goals. And we don't want stress also to interfere with you and your ability to handle things and be able to attain your goals. And everyone has stress. It's not that we're going to never have stress. It's about how do we manage it. So you should know that anxiety disorders and anxiety is the most common problem for kids, teenagers, and adults. And a prevalence rate is the chance that someone's going to have an anxiety disorder in their life. And in the United States, it's pretty high. It's about 32% to 33% chance that in your life you're going to have an anxiety disorder. So if you can learn some of these skills now, you can really prevent having an anxiety disorder. But about 15 to 20% of kids, and then about 32% of teenagers at some point meet the criteria for having an anxiety disorder, which could be worrying, you're up at night worrying a lot, and it interferes with your sleep, or your muscles are tight all the time, and you have constant stomach aches. It comes out a lot as that, and we're going to go into the examples. But when we think about anxiety, it's what we consider an internalizing problem. So it's something that is going on inside of us. We could be thinking things and people wouldn't know what we're thinking about from looking at us. And similar to that would be if we feel bad about ourselves or if we feel depressed. And the opposite of internalizing is externalizing, which is where you might have anger or you might be really active and disruptive. But many times you have these internalizing problems come out actually as stomach aches or headaches. I know when I'm really stressed, I get a stomach ache. Okay, so there's this thing called CBT, that's a type of therapy, I think. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy. I just think it's worth knowing that CBT, all the research shows it's the most effective way to help with this anxiety, and it also really helps with stress. Okay, so these are the 3 parts of anxiety: the body, thoughts, and behavior. And examples, and maybe any of you have examples when you're really anxious or you have to give like a performance or in front of your class, how your body shows that you're stressed. Does anyone want to give me an example of how their body shows stress? Yes?
I get a stomach ache.
Oh, yes. Stomach aches? Okay, yes? They lose hair, that's very common. Yes?
People go like this. I get mad.
Oh, really?
You get mad? And that's actually pretty common. Sometimes, because the part of your brain that's responsible for anxiety, the amygdala, actually also is responsible for anger. Yes?
Me?
Sure.
Oh, okay. I get headaches a lot.
Headaches, so common. Yes? Fatigued. Oh my gosh, you guys are like the best. Okay, yes? Your stomach feels like it's in knots.
People do like foot tapping.
Right, they can fidget, right? That's a pretty common feeling in your body. Yes, last one. Sweaty palms from holding the remote control. Okay. For what? Oh, you get anxious when you're playing the game, right? I mean, you can because it's stressful, especially if it's like Fortnite. Shh, don't talk about Fortnite. Okay, so anyway, so we know the body shows us our stress level, right? The next thing is our thoughts. So typically it's worries, a lot of what if thinking, what if I don't do well, what if I get in trouble? Sometimes you're so stressed you can't sleep and then you start thinking about what if you can't fall asleep? And what if you don't feel well tomorrow and you have a big day? We also make a lot of thinking errors. So we're gonna go through, on your table you have a list of the thinking errors, which we'll go through a few of them. You don't have to look at it now. And then we have negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is a big thing, so people say things to themselves like, I can't handle it, I can't do it, this is too much for me. And when we actually say those things to ourselves, it makes us less likely to be able to meet our goal. So all the research on how do you meet your goal, self-compassion and being kind and supportive of yourself, people who do that meet their goals better than people who are critical and say mean things about themselves to themselves. So it's really important to be have compassion. And then finally, the behavior part. So if we're afraid of something, what are we going to do? We're going to avoid it. If I'm afraid of dogs, and by the way, I see people who are afraid of dogs, they come to me and it's always the best because at the end they get a dog. Oh my gosh. Yeah, sorry. They get a dog and then they send a picture of the kid with the dog, so it's like the most fun. But you know, when you're avoiding dogs, it's really hard because you can't go to your friend's house unless they are willing to put the dog away. Going to birthday parties at other people's houses can be hard. But typically, if you're afraid of it, you're going to avoid it. And then there's all these other nervous behaviors where you might ask lots of questions, or you might fidget all the time, or you might have difficulty concentrating, and that comes out as procrastination. And then also perfectionism, that can be a part of the behavior too. So what we have to do is we have to help with all three parts. So we have the body, thoughts, and behavior, and we have it's very important to learn relaxation, and I'm going to show you 2 breathing strategies after this. And then also the guided meditation. And anybody in here do yoga? Nice. You should be proud. Raise that hand proudly. Good for you. Yay. So, okay, and then for the thoughts, we have to learn how to conquer worries. I'm going to give you a few strategies on that. And then also we have to come up with some positive self-talk cards. And soon we're going to give you, when we do the exercise part, we're going to give some note cards out. And we're going to write down just 4 self-talk cards. Okay, and then for the behavior, we have to get rid of our fears. So in that dog example, we would start out with looking at pictures and videos of dogs. Then we would walk outside without looking around first if there was a dog. And eventually we'd fall up the ladder and we'd be lying on the floor with a dog, which is when you know you don't have a dog phobia anymore. Okay, so I'm going to teach you a breathing strategy. But first, I'm going to just go on the stage here. If you're in the back, like not even entering the chest very much. You want to volunteer? There's no pressure, only 100 kids are watching. Okay, so just listen to my voice. Shh, we need total silence. Just listen to my voice and forget that your friends are around. Okay, so you're just going to close your eyes and you're going to very slowly breathe in through your nose. And it's going to take you a couple breaths to do it. And your goal is to bring the breath to your lower belly. That's great. And then after you keep doing it a couple more times, you're going to be able to keep the block still. You can turn your palms up because we're more relaxed with our palms up. Okay, and you're getting in through your nose. Excellent. And then out through your mouth. You're great. I think your yoga is paying off. Okay, very good. Thanks Always like to test it out. Forget that anyone's around you. Okay. Shh, be quiet so he knows he's on his own. Shh. Okay. He's alone in his bedroom practicing this evening the calm breathing he learned at school this morning. Okay. So, total silence because we don't want to distract. Okay, so when you're ready, you can slowly breathe through your nose. You can keep your eyes closed, palms facing up. Nice and relaxed. And you're going to breathe in through your nose and try to get the breath to go all the way down past the belly button. Okay, you're doing pretty well. You're keeping the block still. I just think you can try to go a little deeper into your belly. There you go. Perfect. That was great. Great job. I love how supportive you all are. I get to bring you guys with me to all the other schools I go to. You can show them how it's done. Okay. Now we're going to all practice a different calm breathing, which you can do right from your chair. We're going to do one nostril breathing, okay? So what we do here, you can pick your nostril. You can even switch in between, okay? All right, so we're going to, ready? Take a look over here, okay? We're gonna exhale first. So pretend you're a balloon and you're deflating. First exhale, go like this, go. Let all the air out, okay? And then we're gonna close one nostril and keep your mouth closed, and we're gonna breathe in for 5 and out for 7. In for 5. And out for 7. We're going to practice again. I know it can make you laugh a little bit, but we're keeping one nostril closed and we're keeping our mouth closed the whole time. Good job. And we're breathing in for 5 and out for 7. Let's do it again. In for 5. And out for 7. Good, now I'm going to encourage you to let the breath come in really slowly. Some people do it like a little too fast, like this. And instead we want it to take it in, and we want to now go in for 8 and out for 10. Okay, ready? So exhale like you're a balloon deflating. Close one nostril, close the mouth. Let's go in for 8. And out.
I think you're about to leave. I might have to pull your mother.
Okay, great. All right, now, it's very important. You see on the bottom it says master this first when you are relaxed. So sometimes people wait until they feel nervous to practice this, and they can't do it. By the way, if you're someone who gets nervous about tests, can do this at your desk. So let's pretend this is my desk. I can even do it without my classmates knowing. Of course, now all your classmates know you can do one nostril breathing, but you can just do like this. Or like this. So it doesn't always have to be obvious. Okay, these are some apps. I'm going to send this email. Your parents are going to get an email at the end of the week, and it will have these apps in here. By the way, the one we're doing today, we're using the Insight Timer app, which is a free app. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to do progressive muscle relaxation. So we're going to tighten up and loosen each muscle group in our body. But because of time, we're only going to do hands and shoulders. So just for fun, tighten up your fists. Pretend you're squeezing juice out of a lemon. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. Hold it. And now let go. Okay, and you have to notice, I want you to really notice the difference between tight muscles and loose muscles. Now, bring your shoulders all the way up towards your ears. Tight, tight, tight. And now drop it. And again, notice the difference between when it's tight and tense. Okay. Mindfulness is when you are aware of your body, and I know you guys have studied a lot about mindfulness. It's really a skill that if you practice more of, it can be the way that you are. And we've already talked a little bit about yoga, but that can help a lot with doing mindfulness as well. Okay, so remember the three parts: body, thoughts, behavior. We're just finishing the body. Now for the thoughts, I'm encouraging you to have what's called a resilient mindset. Resilience is when you can handle whatever comes your way. So when you say something to yourself like, I can handle whatever comes my way, no matter what I have to deal with, I can handle it. There's always a way to problem solve. Very important that this is the way you think about your life, because you're going to have obstacles come up. You're going to have things that feel very tough for you. And if you can have that voice inside of your head that said, I can handle this. Other people have dealt with obstacles. I can deal with them too. It's very, very important. Okay, so on that handout, I'm just going to go through two of them with you. So you see in the middle of your table, you each have a pile of cognitive distortions. Okay, so we're just going to look at the first one. It's called all or nothing thinking, right? Okay, so ready? Okay, all or nothing thinking is one of the most common thinking errors. It's when you think in categories of it's either perfect or it's a failure. So let's say that you're really excited to go to see a movie and you get there and the movie's sold out. If you say, that's it, the whole night's ruined, I hate this day, that's being all or nothing, okay? Or if you work really hard to get a grade, let's say you think, all right, I want to get a B on this, and you get a C, and you say to yourself, that's it, I failed, right? Well, C is not a failure. But in your mind, you think it wasn't what you wanted, so then it's the extreme of the opposite. So flexible people are not all or nothing. They say, well, what does a flexible person think? Okay, if I can't go to this movie, I'll find another movie. If the movie theater is closed, I'll find something else that I can do. One other thinking area, I think it's number 4, catastrophizing. That's what if thinking. That's when your mind goes really wild when thinking about all the bad, horrible things that can happen. This is why it's really good not to watch the news, because the news is like all the bad things in the world, and it can make you think about what if, what if, what if. And that's another thinking error, by the way. At the bottom, selective attention is when you pay attention to information that confirms your belief. So if you have a belief that the world is a scary place and you watch the news, that's going to make you feel like the world is a scary place when really the world is not a scary place. Yes? Yes, I believe in something like the Daily Skim, which is an email that can summarize for you the news of the world, and I think that's great to read that, but there's no pictures, and there are none of these like bad stories that don't actually help you learn more about the world. So I love what you're saying, you're totally right, but the imagery on the news can really get in people's heads. And some of these really bad stories out there take 1 second to get in our mind, and then we can never forget it. Yes?
Personally, I think because my mom told me that she was watching this show about like how these girls got like kidnapped and watch those things so they can see like red flags. Like you see a mysterious person walking to you, you're not just like, oh, sunshine and flowers.
Yes.
Run away.
These are two outstanding comments. So I think we can do two things. I think we can learn about what's going on in the world, and I think we can prepare you to be very safe and savvy to make sure that you stay out of harm's way without actually watching the news. I think we can do both of those things without turning the news on or reading CNN. Yes.
That's what Mel said. I feel like people watch the news sometimes because so that they know what to do so that something doesn't happen. Like
Yes.
if you're in a situation where you're at, like, let's say, like, you're at the bank getting money for a trip to Mexico.
Yes.
And for vacation, and someone comes in to rob the bank. What do? There's things on the news that can help you try to get out of that situation.
So I would rather read an article on what to do if I'm in a bank robbery, seriously, how to escape the dangerous situations that I could be in, than watch the news on a bank robbery. Because the news article, and I love your comments, are so smart. What you're saying is right on, and I'm in agreement with you, but the way to get that information, if you read a story about a bank robbery, you're probably not going to get the best guidance on how to escape a bank robbery. Last question, and then we're going to move on. Yes?
I also feel like parents like put it into their own words of what happens on the news, so it doesn't sound as scary or something we don't really need to watch.
Perfect, and that's what the Daily Skim email does too, and you can have your parents get the Daily Skim email and read you some of the news, because I love that you want to be informed. Okay, so those are some examples of thinking errors. I'll also tell you that some kids have so many worries on their mind that, again, it interferes with them staying focused, and also it can interfere with their ability to go to sleep. If you're one of these kids, we want you to write your worries down, and then we also want you to make a recording of them. And this sounds like it doesn't make any sense. Why would I record my worries and listen to them over and over? But your brain is designed to get totally used to something that keeps presenting itself. So if you watch the same commercial over and over and over and over, you eventually stop paying attention. You can't stay focused. It's the same thing with if you listen to your worry and you make a worry tape and you listen over and over and over and over, you're going to get completely bored and unalarmed by those worries. This is something that, your parents can help you with, but basically you just type out your worries or write them out and you make a recording of them and you listen in a row 10 minutes every day until they become boring. I should tell you that the first 3 or 4 times you hear yourself listening to the worry tape, it gets your worries higher, but then it goes down after day 4 or 5. I've never had anyone fail it. I've had 100% success in 17, 18 years doing worry tapes. No one has ever not gotten used to the worries on the worry tape. You have to not hold back. Also, you have to say whatever is on your mind. Okay, I have to skip this part because of time. Okay, self-talk. These are the things that we want you to say to yourself. I have to face my fears to overcome them. I can handle whatever comes my way. Anxiety is not a good predictor of what's to come. It's just an unpleasant feeling. What would someone who's not scared of the situation think? I also say this, what would someone who's totally confident think in this situation, and what would they do? By the way, you guys are doing a phenomenal job listening. Okay, I'm also going to skip to the behavior part. So remember, body, thoughts, behavior. So we talked about avoidance is very natural if you're afraid of it. When you procrastinate on your homework because your homework makes you nervous or you feel really overwhelmed and stressed by it, that's a form of avoidance. Avoidance is always going to make whatever you're afraid of worse. Other anxious behaviors, I went through some of them. So the reason we make a ladder is to face your fears. And I'm going to show you an example. But when you face your fears, you're doing these things called exposures. Exposures are like being exposed to something that makes me scared. It's things that you're afraid of in order of easiest to hardest. So here's an example of someone, believe it or not, who had a phobia of snakes.
Wow.
Which you would think, like, who really likes, maybe some people like snakes, but everyone's like maybe a little scared of snakes. But this kid was really nervous every time he'd be in his backyard. If he heard like the bushes making noises, usually of course it's a bird or a squirrel, he would think it's a snake. And his friend had a pet snake, and he also worked at a colonial farm, and believe it or not, ran into snakes all the time. So we made this ladder, which I can show you up here, you know? It's just a literal list of easiest to hardest practices with snakes. So that's Dr. Sylvie. She and I work together, and she's here to see your school and see the talk. Okay, so this is the easiest thing, was talking about snakes. Then we looked at pictures. We also watched a video on YouTube. All the way up to, we went to Petco and looked at snakes, and we had them take the snakes out of the cage and stand near the snake. Okay, over time, he became completely unafraid of snakes. So he practiced the steps. Here's another example of someone who has some anxiety about being dropped off. She was a little younger, and she didn't have a cell phone, and she also had dyslexia, and she wanted her ladder, which looked like this when it was all written out. She wanted it to have some pictures on it. So we're gonna have you, as your assignment, you know, make a little goal. Remember I said the goal, and you're gonna come up with steps. You can draw it out too, but this was things like Dad picks you up, and you know in advance. Oh, she only wanted her mom to pick her up. Dad picks you up, and you don't know in advance. You go to a soccer game with Mom, and she drives away, so she leaves you at the game. She doesn't stay because she just asked her mom to stay. So it's from easiest to hardest. She had what we call separation anxiety. What was the hardest? Good question. The hardest was to feel positive about speech language therapy and to feel positive about learning new things. So she had statements that she was going to say, like, you know, this might not be easy, but I know I'm getting better at it. That to us was her feeling positive, because she had a lot of problems getting her there. And third hardest was having a dad help her with her homework. Here's someone who has OCD, who is really scared of germs and touching doorknobs and bathroom flushers and eating food from a bake sale. She would go to the bake sale and ask people, I mean, she did not have any social anxiety. She'd say, have you been sick in the last 10 days when you bake these baked goods? And as long as they said, no, we haven't been sick, she would buy it, take a bite, and then make her mom take a bite too, so that if her mom didn't get sick, she would eat it. You know, and then eat 2-day-old leftover meat and expired foods. So, you know, yogurt has this expiration date, but it really doesn't expire until after the expiration date, usually by about a week. And so we ate expired yogurt. If it smells or has too much water at the top, obviously it's bad. But usually, what? If it's moldy, please don't eat it. Don't say, oh, this psychologist came and said it could be moldy yogurt. Okay. All right. So this is the last thing, and then we're going to do our practice. Okay. So this is the thing with the facing your fears. Ready? You don't ever feel ready to face your fears. You just have to make yourself do it. And then after you do it, that's when you get courage, right? That's when you realize you can do it. So there's this great expression called courage comes after slaying the dragon. So you sort of kill the dragon, and then you realize that just how courageous you really are. And then for people who procrastinate, who put their work off, again, you're not going to feel like doing your work most of the time. You have to just make yourself do it. And then once you do it, which is taking action, you start to feel the motivation. So action comes first. Take action, and then motivation comes second. Okay. I have to zip through. Oh, mindset. Do you guys know about mindset? Yeah. Okay, I see you've learned it. So I'm just going to tell you that when you have a growth mindset, you feel good about the effort and the hard work you put in. It's not all about the grade. And when you do well on something, you have to praise yourself for your efforts, not for the grade. And remember, as you keep working on something, you can get better at it. I should tell you also that obviously success is not all about A's. When you look at the most successful people in the world, they're not straight A students. And who you are, and not just how well you do, is going to make a big difference in your future. And you also have to make sure you spend some time in nature, because when you're inside all the time, it's not so good. Okay, here are 3 things to tell you also. So grit is stick-with-itness, staying with it, not giving up. It's very highly related to being successful. Resilience, which we've already talked about, not knowing that you can handle whatever comes your way. And then self-esteem. It's super important to believe in yourself and not let that negative self-talk stand in the way. So you have to have that self-compassion where you say things like, I can do this, I know it's hard, but I'm not going to give it up. Okay, so now we're going to ask you to each identify a behavior, and we're going to do this in a slimmed down way, because I want to make sure that I give you the full relaxation, which is 15 minutes. Okay. So do you have sheets of paper available? You know, just, oh, you have index cards. You know what? Turn the paper in front of you, the packet instructions over, and you should all have a pen in your goodie bag.